Before I get into the topics that I do want to cover, it should be noted, ABC News has fired, let go Terry Moran, for Christ's sake, veteran ABC News correspondent, 2 days after he posted a note on X calling the toilet rat and the Nazi Jew Stephen Miller, quote, world-class haters, end quote. I told you before, or I've shared with you before, that when I worked at CNN, we, as writing staff or production staff, we had to make sure that the copy we provided to the anchor people on television, on camera, would be absolutely clear of any kind of personal feelings from the writer or the producer. Terry Moran was not a writer or a producer necessarily. He was an anchor person, although he also, as well, he was a correspondent. Come on, Mike. And in that role, there have been many pieces that Terry Moran wrote that were published someplace. But the rule for journalists back in the day, I don't think it should apply anymore, given the circumstances under which we're trying to maintain this republic. But the rule was, if you were a major news reporter, correspondent, anchor person, you didn't share your personal opinions, which is part of the journalistic coda. You know, you're just not supposed to do that. But ABC News said yesterday afternoon that Terry Moran's contract was about to expire anyway, and, quote, based on his post, which was a clear violation of ABC News policies, we have made the decision to not renew. The statement went on, at ABC News, we hold all of our reporters to the highest standard of objectivity, fairness, and professionalism, and we remain committed to delivering straightforward, trusted journalism, end quote. Boy, talk about being on the horns of a dilemma when I read something like that. But I understand ABC News's stated position of defending journalism and defending the objectivity of journalism. But I also know that ABC News and the American public do not exist in a vacuum where this fucking bum Donald Trump is not destroying everything his pudgy little hands can wrap their fingers around. It was just 6 weeks ago that Terry Moran interviewed the toilet rat in the Oval Office. That's when the toilet rat made some snotty comment to him, as he always does. That's all the toilet rat knows how to do, is make snotty comments about his betters, because he would never, ever, ever, ever have the character or the professionalism of someone like Terry Moran. But it was where the toilet rat said, I don't know who you are, never heard of you, but this is your big chance. Oh, the bastard. Now, the fact that Terry Moran was at the end of a contract cycle made it easier for ABC to fire him so quickly. And according to CNN, who has fired a bunch of their journalists over the past year, these fucking news-gathering organizations, well, I'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, according to CNN, Moran's colleagues were stunned when he posted that tweet and then deleted it. As far as Trump was concerned, Terry Moran wrote, quote, hatred is only a means to an end, and that end is his own glorification. That is his spiritual nourishment, end quote. And as far as the Nazi Jew is concerned, Stephen Miller, Terry Moran wrote, Miller, on the other hand, hatreds are his spiritual nourishment. He eats his hate, end quote. There is nothing factually incorrect about anything Terry Moran posted. The statements that cost him his job at ABC. Nothing. Trump administration officials also, before ABC had a chance to fire him, they called for the network to suspend or terminate Terry Moran. His press bitch, this little Carolyn Levitt, the little Christian Nazi, she said, "This is unhinged and unacceptable." You little shit. So, within a matter of hours after posting and deleting what he wrote, Moran had been suspended, ABC saying that his post, quote, violated our standards and did not reflect the views of ABC News. Jesus Christ. So far, Moran has kept his silence. I hope he, I pretty much am certain of what Terry Moran is going to do now is probably isolate himself and write a book, or maybe he'll show up on some of the news shows, not news shows, but opinion programs to state his case. I certainly hope so. Meanwhile, Bob Costas, who is, well, he's only 73, but because he's been so prominent, he's probably one of the deans of sportscasting in this country. At an awards ceremony Monday evening in New York, Bob Costas said, end quote, he was in New York to accept a Lifetime Achievement Award for his, quote, distinct, consistent, and unique contributions to the public's understanding of the media, end quote. And what started out, according to CNN, reported on this, what started out as a speech that Costas was going to reflect on his 50-year career in sports journalism, it quickly turned and became a scorching sermon about the state of sports media and the threats to the free press coming from the toilet rat. The toilet rat's administration's attacks on journalism, including, lawsuits and FCC investigations and the crackdown on press access. Bob Costas said, quote, what's happening now are not matters of small degree. They're different in kind to anything, certainly in my lifetime, and none. The president intimidated ABC into reviewing George Stephanopoulos, end quote. And that, of course, was because Stephanopoulos said on air that Trump had been, quote, found liable for rape in the E. Jean Carroll case when the jury found him liable for sexual abuse. Costas said, quote, all they should have said, referring to ABC, all they should have said was George misspoke. They didn't have to pay a $15 million ransom, end quote, to the toilet rat. In the course of the speech, Bob Costas then turned his attention to CBS, right? And the major stockholder in CBS is Sherry Redstone. And Costas said this about her, quote, did Sherry Redstone, because to effect a merger that Trump's FCC could stand in the way of, did she have to besmirch and undercut the gold standard in our lifetime of broadcast journalism? End quote. Now, she currently controls, through her partial ownership, her Global, that's the media company that owns CBS News now. And she wants to sell, I mentioned this, a week or so ago, she wants to sell her shares in the company's, but the deal needs the approval from the toilet rat's administration, this Nazi fuckwad who squats either at Mar-a-Lago or at in the Oval Office. Jesus Christ, this guy. So as a result, Sherry Redstone has tried to settle the toilet rat's lawsuit against CBS over a 60-minute segment. You remember that dust up when the toilet rat can't stand facts that present him as a fucking useless dictator that he is. And he was screaming and farting and shitting his pants about how 60 Minutes had edited an interview with Kamala Harris that was not favorable to the toilet rat. And, of course, CBS News immediately fucking collapsed on their knees begging Trump to back off. And how did Trump back off? He filed a $50 billion lawsuit against CBS. Costas went on to say that, quote, paying $20 million in ransom, he's referring now to ABC, paying $20 billion in ransom to Trump is just the cost of doing business when there's billions of dollars at stake, end quote. I guess the reference there is to what Sherry Redstone agreed to pay this fucking bum. Anyway, Costas said, quote, "These are ongoing assaults on the basic idea of a free press." Costas added in his speech, if the answer to the mistakes that media can make, mainstream media can make, they can make mistakes, and they usually apologize or correct the record. But if the answer to that is MAGA media, if the answer to that is Donald Trump's view of the world, which is only through a prism of what benefits him, I'll stay where we are. Costas, in that speech, he said he had often heard from sports fans who said things like, "I used to love Bob Costas, but then he turned political." Costas said, "You know what? If that's what you think, and that's how you think, and you think it's in defense of that guy, I wear that as a badge of honor." End quote. Well, just two current examples over the past 3 days of how so many institutions in this country are collapsing, just fucking collapsing, under the pressure from this Nazi fucking bum, Donald Trump. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.